Welcome back to America's Forum. I'm J.D. Hayworth.
I'm Ed Berliner.
And I'm John Bachman alongside Morgan Thompson. It's great to see you, Morgan.
Always great to be here with you guys. Well, tell me, are you a fan of Charlton Heston?
Of course.
Who isn't, right? Come on, The Ten Commandments, El Cid, Planet of the Apes, and of course, his Oscar-winning performance in Ben-Hur. Well, now he's being honored by the U.S. Postal Service.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
A commemorative stamp featuring the actor will be unveiled at the TCM Classic Film Festival in Hollywood next month. Heston is the 18th star to be honored as part of Legends of Hollywood series. The event will be attended by members of Heston's family, including his wife Lydia Clark Heston, who took the photograph on which the stamp is based, his son, filmmaker Fraser Heston, and his daughter Holly Rochelle. Fraser remarked how deeply grateful the family are that his father has been honored with the postage stamp, remarking, "In many ways, a nation's stamps are a cross-section of a culture, its ideals and icons in microcosm. As a fervently patriotic American, my father would be deeply moved to know that his image, based on one of my mother's photographs, will be on a United States Forever postage stamp." The unveiling will coincide with the world premiere of the newly restored 1958 movie Touch of Evil, starring Heston, Janet Leigh, and Orson Welles, about a murder and kidnapping mystery involving police corruption in a small Mexican town.
And joining us now, Michael Levine, Hollywood media expert, author, and the former publicist to Charlton Heston. Michael, we thank you very much for your time, and we welcome you to America's Forum.
Well, thank you, and thank you for sharing your valuable audience with me.
Well, we are pleased to do so. And going back to the creation of the stamp, it's tempting to say with the Ten Commandments and all the different movies there, but going back to creation of the stamp rather than the story of creation, what prompted you to petition for this stamp with the Postal Service?
Well, it was an interesting story, at least for me, about I represented Charlton Heston for 20 years. He was my first major star, and you know, when I was a very young man in Hollywood, having Charlton Heston as a client was a very, very big break for me and for my career. And I realized about 3 years ago, as I was talking to some of the younger people in my office, my younger staff, that they didn't realize who he was. And so people at the age 24, 25 that were working for me did not know who Charlton Heston was and the significance that he played in our company's development. And so, frankly, that pissed me off a little bit, and I decided at that point that a postage stamp might be a fitting tribute. And the problem was that there wasn't much support for it at the time. And so I went about the work of having a press conference and beginning the long and difficult journey to try to convince people that this was a good idea. And the turning point for the story really came when I communicated with Newsmax back about 3 years ago, asking Mr. Ruddy, the founder, and others if they would be willing to support the petition effort for Mr. Heston's stamp, and they were, and the Newsmax readers responded passionately and fervently, which I'm endlessly grateful for, and I really believe that that was in part a turning point on the journey to getting this accomplishment tomorrow. U.S. postage stamp is a very high honor. Mr. Heston will be honored tomorrow with the unveiling of a U.S. postage stamp.
Well, you know, why were people so hesitant and so resistant to this? Because I know when I was in journalism and film school, Ben-Hur was one of the most important films ever made. So it's amazing to me that you say the younger generation doesn't even know who he is.
Yeah, I think that, look, modern life has put forth a lot of challenges for the world and for America. A lot of good things have come from modern life and technology, and a lot of challenging things. And one of them is our absence of any memory. Sometimes when I look at the internet, I feel like I'm in a Boston bar at 2 a.m., where everyone's mean and drunk, and no one's going to remember a thing that was said the next day. And so I feel that one of the tragedies of modern American life, modern life, is our absence of any memory. And so if you ask young people today, I mean, forget about Charlton Heston or Jack Benny, but even if you say to young people today, you know who Johnny Carson is, they may barely remember. It's part of an ongoing challenge. So I think the postage stamp helps focus attention on who this historical Hollywood figure was. Charlton Heston was one of the most important film stars for 3-4 decades, I guess, in Hollywood.
Well, Michael, you know, a lot of people might remember Charlton Heston from his later years and his advocacy for the Second Amendment, but he was also very politically active early on in the 1960s with the Civil Rights Movement. A lot of folks might not remember that as well. Tell us about his efforts there. That
is a very important point, and I will tell you a very interesting story that I absolutely have confirmed. In August of 1963, it was bloody unpopular to support the Civil Rights Movement and Martin Luther King, and there was a march, of course, on Washington. And so Charlton Heston, along with several other people, led a Hollywood contingent to that march. And there was the day before the march, in the afternoon, somewhere around noon, the day before the march, in which Martin Luther King spoke, Charlton Heston and Marlon Brando got into a dispute about the proper tactics to play, and Brando was much more in favor of getting arrested, being more militant. And Mr. Heston said that that was not a good idea, that it was much better to appear dignified, and that if the Hollywood contingent decided to get very militant, that he would leave. The Screen Actors Guild that was there in support of the march supported Mr. Heston, not Mr. Brando. They were very dignified, and of course that proved to be a very important component to the success of the march. Had there been arrests, had there been any rabble-rousing, Mr. Heston felt very strongly that would be unsuccessful. But the thing that young people have a very difficult time understanding in terms of historical significance is that to go to Washington in support of Martin Luther King in August of 1963 was not only not particularly popular in many, many, many parts of this country, but it was bloody dangerous, really dangerous. Mm-hmm. And of course today Martin Luther King is reviewed by all Americans appropriately as an almost saintly historical figure. But I promise you, in August 1963, it was really, really unpopular in many parts of this country and terribly dangerous. So Mr. Heston had the courage of his convictions, whether it be in supporting the Second Amendment or in supporting the Civil Rights Movement.
Certainly did.
And Michael, we do appreciate that reminiscence about your client and a great American, Charlton Heston. And I got to tell you, I love the fact he was so popular. In 1996 and 1998, he came out to campaign for me for Congress, and I think he helped to make the difference in both those close elections. We want to know your thoughts on Charlton Heston and his new stamp. We'd love to hear from you via social media. Tweet us at Newsmax, #AmericasForum.